editor, Economic Times CIO. Economic Times CIO is not just a news portal, but a platform for IT decision makers to interact, share knowledge, and best practices. In our endeavor to empower the IT decision makers, today we are starting a series of discussion by the name of CIO Hours. Here we give an IT decision maker the role of an editor and an opportunity to question a service provider, vendor, or a subject matter expert. The aim is to get the best out of the spokesperson and make the entire discussion relevant to the Economic Times CIO community. Besides, we would like to put some onus on the IT decision maker community for the flow of relevant information, data, and case study among the community. Today in the series, we have Parag Deodhar, Chief Risk Officer, Vice President, Process Excellence and Program Management with Bharti AXA General Insurance. Parag is playing the role of editor of Economic Times CIO, and he'll interview Saket Modi, an ethical hacking expert and co-founder of Lucideus Tech. So over to you, Parag.
Thanks, Akhilesh. Dear friends, it is said that there is no such thing as 100% security. Anything that is connected can be hacked. As CISOs and security professionals, we are at the forefront to defend our companies from breaches. But if we see the number of attacks and breaches hitting the news headlines every week, our job is becoming more and more difficult every day. When a breach happened at a global retailer last month, the CEOs of many of their competitors called their CISOs and asked if they were safe. I'm not so sure what the CISOs answered, but a few days later, it was found that 10 more retailers were breached similarly. The need of the hour is to be even more proactive and preemptive in assessing the threats, finding the vulnerabilities, and then plugging the gaps. This is a never-ending journey, and the companions in this journey are consultants and advisors who help us and work shoulder to shoulder in helping us defend our companies. So today we are going to talk to one such advisor and consultant who has helped many companies in minimizing their risks. So let me introduce our speaker today, Mr. Saket Modi, CEO Lucideus Tech. Saket has been awarded the title of the Indian Ambassador of Cybersecurity in Education at the National Education Awards 2013. Over the last 5 years, he along with his team have been conducting training and consultancy sessions across the globe. He has been invited to most of the elite institutions in India, including the IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, etc., for conducting seminars and workshops on ethical hacking. At a young age, he has already trained more than 5,000 individuals across 100 plus colleges, corporates, and government departments. He is also an advisor to reputed organizations, banks, and e-commerce companies in helping them design safe cyber architecture for their web servers and networks. So we are going to have an interactive session with the question and answer session with Saket to get some insights on the best practices and innovative solutions to our problems. So to start with, Saket, can you please give us an overview of the current state of security and the recent issues that you may have come across? Over to you, Saket.
Thank you, Parag. Thank you so much for the introduction. It was a lovely introduction, and thank you, Akhilesh, for inviting me, firstly. So just to give you an overview, what I would like to say is that I'd like to take a case study where we talk about some large organization which is being breached, which happened in the real life. I'll talk about the pain points which happened and the type of implications which can go ahead in such kind of security breaches. And then, of course, we can take up a very interactive kind of a question-answer session where I'd love to answer any kind of a query which comes to to the mind of any CISO when he sees a security as a challenge. So I'd like to take the case study, and I would say this is one of the most commonly used case studies in the security industry. But this is a very powerful one of one of the largest telecom operators of Canada. The name of the organization was Nortel. And this organization itself was more than almost 400 Canadian dollars and 400 billion Canadian dollars, and it actually at one time it was comprising of more than 1/3 of the total Canadian stock exchange in terms of the market cap. So it was, of course, without any doubt, one of the largest of organizations when you can talk about the telecom sector. Being there at that level, and I'm talking not very far, I'm only talking about 2004, 2005, where it was seeing its peak. Today, the situation with that same organization is it's bankrupt. The website doesn't work, and it of course has ceased all its operations. The only feasible explanation which came out of how such a massive organization within not even a decade can completely collapse was only thanks to the intrusions which were happening and the level of security breach which took place at right from the highest of the level, right from the CEO's inbox till the last employee who was there in the organization. What it is believed is for 2 continuous years, the CEO's inbox was infiltrated and was being monitored by their counterparts in some of the other countries which are sitting there, and they went ahead and actually monitored every single tender which they filed, and they went on losing every single tender, every single bid which they ever went for, and they really did not know what was the reason. Secondly, any kind of an R&D that they were doing before they could come up with any kind of a product, and all of their hard work used to go in waste because there was somebody else who was sitting there who used to simply infiltrate into the networks, go inside, steal the files of all the hard work done by their R&D teams, and simply make something even better maybe with their added R&D on the same product, and come out with that in the market before Nortel had any clue about that. So all this kept happening, and the problem is the negligence of the top management was to the extent where they were not ready to accept the fact that yes, there is such a serious breach which has already happened, and there is somebody who's already penetrated into our systems and already sitting there. So this negligence and non-acceptance ki such a high degree of intrusion is possible actually disabled and dismantled such a giant organization to an organization which is bankrupt today. So this, it was a live case study which happened in the real life. Similarly, we are getting a lot of other cases where we are seeing intrusions happening on an everyday basis where it's going up, and it's going up exponentially. So there needs to be a very, very strict kind of a protocol. I'm not talking about some kind of a compliance right now. I'm talking about a culture. I'm talking about a mindset, especially in the top management, which needs to be inculcated. It doesn't matter if you're from a non-technical background. Considering everybody uses the technology today, it really, really needs to be embedded in the DNA of anybody and everybody in an organization to understand what normal security hygiene is as a part of our lives, as a culture of an individual, of a society, of a country as a whole, or even the globe as a whole. So this is happening already. I'll put forward a very basic problem why I come across when generally people ask me about security. Generally people ask me, why are there so many attacks which are happening, and what is it that really can be done to secure such attacks? To give this answer in a very layman sense, I'll just ask a very basic question, and anybody and everybody who's listening to this conversation will connect with that. See, everybody who's listening to this conversation definitely has an access to the internet and has an access to technology. He's definitely doing something over the internet. But the question is, almost everybody who's listening to this and viewing this, have you ever gone ahead and actually been able to get a proper training on how do you use the internet? Till today, nobody does that. Till today, we learn one of the most crucial elements of our lives only through our colleagues and friends on अच्छा ये देख इसको Google बोलते हैं, अच्छा ये देख इसको Yahoo बोलते हैं, and that is the biggest problem because we are not taught in a structurized way on how do you ideally use the internet. And that's not a problem also. I would say this kind of a challenge has always come in the human race whenever there is a big revolution which has come. The internet revolution, of course, just struck us 15, 20, maybe 25 years back, where people started understanding what internet is all about. So why we go to schools and colleges is primarily because we go there to understand what our way of living for the next 70, 80, 90 years would be. But even today, not even a single school or not even a single college of the country is teaching individuals on how do you responsibly use the internet, or what are the do's and don'ts which you do on the cyber landscape. And this is where the basic problem starts from, and that is why it expands in a bigger way. And then of course, one thing leads to the other and the breaches happen. So Parag, I hope I have just covered the basic fundamental problem which is here. Now I guess we can move on to something where you would like to point out on some questions if you would have on a more of a CISO perspective and more of a technical perspective, if there are any. So please, Parag, over to you.
Thanks, Saket. I think you've brought out a very important point on the education and training aspect of on security for the general public. So, as you said, let's talk about a few which I have from the CISO angle. So, and from a corporate angle. When we talk about security, generally the focus is on network security, DDoS. Now the recent trend is APTs, etc. But do you think, have you seen enough focus on application security and secure coding part of?
Great. So with our experience of where we have gone to and really tried to enable this thing, see, we classify the total corporates from our point of view into two halves. One is an IT organization, the other is an IT enabled organization. Let's talk about both of these and let's address the question one by one. First, let me talk about the IT enabled organization. When you talk about an IT enabled organization like yourself, I'm sure the top management is more focused on the core area of their competence of generating business or doing the work in their field. They hire some extremely talented people like yours and a small team of technical experts who are responsible for hiring the right kind of vendors outside the organization which can deliver to them the right kind of security precautions. So firstly, the generic understanding of security is not there in the the IT enabled organization in the top management. That becomes a challenge. So wahan pe I don't think that they are also concerned about the network security or the DDoS, and they are simply the thing should be up and running, and that's all that matters to them, right? Now, when you talk about your community and the CISO community, what I can say, I have been very happy to see that there is a certain focus on a lot of secure coding practices where a lot of people have been asking the question to the vendors saying that fine, you're giving me an application, you're giving me a software to run, but remember I will get a third-party security assessment done to make sure that the product which you're providing me or the application you're providing me is actually safe or it is not safe. Now, out here we need to address some factors. Now remember, when you're going to a vendor, I'm talking about all the types of, right from a TCS, Wipro, HCL, Tech Mahindra, they all follow in the same category, fall in the same category of providing you solutions, and primarily the applications. Of course, the infrastructure comes at a second place. Now when we give them a budget and we provide them to give an application, firstly, they are very time bounded. The problem in security industry, what I feel is, the problem with unsafe and a safe application is they both look exactly the same from the forefront. It's only in the back side, that is the code, which creates any kind of a difference. So the good part is, I would say that yes, there are some CISOs with the right technical background who actually make it a point to ensure that the right hygiene is being provided while development of the thing is happening, and most importantly, they tell them that I will get a third-party security test done, so you better give me the best and the safest application, because remember, there's somebody else who will audit it, and only then I will clear your 100% payment. This is a real-life case which I'm talking about, which keeps on happening everywhere. So yes, there is some kind of a thing which is there, but I would still say that in the IT side, I'm talking about the IT solution provider companies out there, the importance of secure coding only comes in when the client asks for it. Otherwise, even now what we have seen, it is really not secure code practices that they want to really rigorously follow. They actually want to go ahead and provide the software solution on time, which is their top priority. The backend kind of a patching and backend kind of a robust building of giving more and more version, that keeps on happening. And this sounds very funny, but again, without naming any particular organization, I would tell you that there are some organizations which intentionally don't want to make their software extremely robust because they want to generate some money from the support also and from the annuity business also. So again, we are just talking facts, and we really want to bring out the challenges which are coming there. So that is the reason I'm just giving you the thing without, of course, using names.
Sure.
So I guess that answers your thing in
Yeah,
a short.
thanks. I think that answers it quite well. The other question which I have is, most of the companies today have an e-commerce model. Even service companies, obviously banks are doing internet banking, insurance companies are selling insurance policies on the net, etc. And any attack on their websites results in loss of customer data, which is very critical, as well as reputation loss. So, what kind of measures are required to ensure that this kind of reputation loss is avoided?
Okay, so the first kind of a thing that I would like to say, and since this is such a lovely question, that what happens is that today the top management, again, when you're talking most of the companies I'm talking, most of them are the IT enabled companies, and I'm not talking the IT companies. Of course, the IT companies are at a much bigger stake of loss because they are IT and they're supposed to at least secure their IT to get the right kind of projects. But even talking about the IT enabled companies out there, now the problem is that the top management understands that in case any breach happens, there'll be a huge reputational loss. Forget the financial. I'm not talking financial right now. Of course, there is a financial loss attached, but the long-term implication comes with the reputation and the integrity of the website or the competence of that particular organization, which comes into the picture. As a result of this, again, this is a sad part, but the fact remains the same, that most of the organizations do not want to come forward and tell when a security breach has actually happened. They will get down the website, they will say it's under construction, they will say that we are trying to upgrade our servers, but they really do not go ahead and tell the world that yes, this kind of a breach has actually happened. Now what happens in this entire case is that since this is not publicly shared information, this saves their reputation to some extent, but the bigger problem remains that the actual cause of the breach doesn't really come down to the expert community where it can be analyzed and it can be ensured that some other organization is not breached from that particular manner. So this is a challenge which of course is it's like, I would say, it's like the rape case victims. Generally, even after doing the wrong kind of a thing, they don't want to come up and accept because they feel their reputation is such a big damage which is there. And how can you do things to avoid this thing? If I answer that question of yours, I would say there are multiple ways by which you need to ensure the right kind of security is maintained. Now, three very distinct things, if I tell you, that I have seen with our experience in a lot of large organizations on what we insist at, on how do you secure yourself in a real way, not just from the e-commerce way. So let me in fact answer to the e-commerce way, and then we come to the general way, if that's where the question leads us. So when you talk of the e-commerce, of course you need to be very careful in selecting your client in terms of who is the vendor who you are getting it developed from. He has to have the right kind of a track record, giving a lot of organization the right kind of services. The most important things where organizations fail to understand, but this is very, very crucial, we have even worked out on a number that if there is a X amount that you are spending for a total infrastructure and a solution of e-commerce solution which is to be provided by your organization, ideally 8% of the total spending of that budget should only and only go to security measures, where you hire a third party and depend, on an average, that is the figure which comes down to, and it only takes 8% of the total cost to ensure that 100% which is being delivered to you is up to the right global security standards or not. So generally people should make this as a practice that it's not 100%, you're actually spending 108% of the total budget which you are there, or you incorporate that into the budget itself, where people understand that because of that 8%, the vendor which is delivering you the 100% makes sure that it is the right delivery, and most importantly, you have the peace of mind in your head because there's one checker and there is one maker who are independent, who are not from the same organization, and that's very, very crucial that they should not be from the same organization, because that keeps the competition out there. And of course, the checker would want to find certain vulnerabilities, so they will go all the way to make sure that the software which is being delivered to you is absolutely foolproof. Yeah.
Great. So since you mentioned about the budgets, let me talk about the budgets a little more.
Sure.
So when, as CISOs, we go to the CFOs for budgets for security. Generally the question is, what is the ROI on the investment? No return on
Right.
investment, right? And it becomes quite difficult to justify the ROI on security investments per se, because the returns are not really tangible. So,
Absolutely.
what advice would you give to CISOs to how to justify the investment and how to answer this ROI question?
I would say that, with our experience, firstly, security sadly is that kind of a field where the impact is not directly visible. I'll give you what I'm trying to say. I'll give you an example. We had a 9/11 attack where all of us remember the site where there was a building and there was a plane which came crashing into that, as a result of which there was a sudden rise of a multi-billion-dollar security industry to put cameras and to put the luggage scanners in front of every five-star hotel and every airport and every this thing, right? Now that impact was visible, it was in front of the eyes, and that created a sensation in the human psychology of anybody and everybody who was watching that. The challenge with security is you get only news like 5 billion credit cards which were stolen, 5 billion kind of accounts which were hacked, and generally people come down to the fact where they understand, yeah, come on, I mean, it's somebody else who's getting hacked, it's somebody else whose organization was compromised, and sadly we believe that okay, we are okay and we can put security and we know it's important, but we'll put it, I call it as the longest pole of the tent. It's generally the longest pole which you put at the end. So there is a pole, they all know that, and they know it's important, and without that they can't survive, but it's always the last kind of a priority when it comes down to allocating budgets. So how do you go ahead and combat that, if that is what you're asking?
Correct.
Now I feel, firstly, you have to make them see things rather than only talking theory to them. Now, how can you make them see things out there? I would say ideally, and we have worked and successfully we were able to do this part, where a lot of CISOs who are very good friends of ours, they say, Ki, Saket, come down, take a 20-minute session with the top management, where you show them live. I'm not talking theory. I'm not talking gyan on what are the percentage of things which are hacked or breached. We show them live what kind of an impact only 5 seconds of a pen drive which is injected into any laptop of the world can do. What impact only by clicking on one link in front of their eyes on the laptop, on the projector, can take a complete access not just of the internet but of the entire network which we take out there. What kind of an impact only by their phone sitting there with their own hands but inside my proximity, go ahead and we go ahead and hack that and show them in front of that. When you show the thing from live perspective, the immediate impact becomes much higher. That's number one. Number two, of course, I believe you really need to use some very strong case studies where you show them, see, this is what really happened when this kind of a security measure was not taken. So the way I told you that 8% kind of that number, that really takes care of the 100% of operations which is actually happening. So they better look at it, because if they don't invest that 8%, they are putting that 100% into stake. So that's the only way in which these are the two tangible ways where case studies and live demonstrations by way they can be shown and they can be made to feel what really is possible. Yeah.
Okay. So the next question which I have, Saket, is many a times I get this question, when we go for budgets, etc., that if we implement this solution, can you guarantee that we'll not have a security breach? As a consultant, do you face this question? And do you ever provide guarantees?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the first question which comes in, especially when I'm not talking to a CISO. When we talk to somebody else, we are ready to give everything, but can you guarantee we will never be breached? For that, I just ask them a basic question. I just ask them that when you hire a bodyguard to guard yourself, can you guarantee that you will never be shot? When you when you take a security guard at your home, can you guarantee that no robbery will happen? I mean, at least we belonging to India should never ask this question. We have been lucky/unlucky to have our own prime minister being shot twice from their own bodyguards. So like, firstly, we need to make them understand that security is not a one-point solution. It's a process. And there is nothing called the safe car, in the sense nobody can make a car which can never go into an accident. A car can always go into an accident. But as an engineer, you can make a car that when the accident occurs, you have the right kind of airbags, you have the right kind of security precautions in place, so that the person sitting inside the car, the casualty is reduced, or it can be minimized to the best extent. So again, that is where it stands for security. We tell them that not just us, nobody in the world can ever provide anybody, even on the physical space, even on the virtual space, 100% security, because that's something which never exists. However, you can get ready for the right kind of attacks, so that you have the right kind of a defense mechanism in place, so that, number one, you should not be attacked. God forbid, even if the attack happened, you should have all your responses team absolutely ready 24/7 to ensure a minimum uptime. So what we provide, as we are service providers, we take something called an annual security scan contract, where we go ahead and we deploy people on the site of a lot of people, and we tell them that, see, there is no attack which can happen. However, if there is an attack, we guarantee you that within 4 hours of the attack, you will definitely be up and running, no matter how much resources we have to shell into that. But we take that guarantee, considering, of course, we need all the support from the side of the IT staff the moment the attack actually happens, so that we can work with the IT staff and ensure that within 4 hours, you are up and running and patched. Up and running is no big deal, because you always have your backup copy and you can upload that and you can be up and running, but the vulnerability still exists. So I'm saying up and running and patched within 4 hours. That is something called, we call it LERTF, Lucideus Emergency Response Task Force, and there are people who are there 24/7 available, and they only look into that. So I'm just saying that these security or these mechanisms has to be put in place to understand the security threat, so that the probability can come down, but there is nothing absolute. So yeah.
Yeah, obviously, as I said, if it's connected, it can be hacked. So there's no guarantee.
I'll also, just not to interrupt you, but at the end of the session also, we'll take it up offline. Maybe we'll also prove you, even if it is not connected, it can be hacked. I'll come to that and how it's possible. Chalo, done. Please go ahead.
So I think I have a lot many more questions, frankly, but I think we are kind of running out of time here. So let me just try to recap a few points what you have mentioned. I think the first most important thing is educating not only the end users, the general public, but also in case of corporates, the senior management needs to be educated on what needs to be secured, what are the risks, what are the threats, so that can translate into the right kind of budgets also being available for security. As you said, I think 8%, that sounds like a good number. Let's see, I think CISOs will try to benchmark their budgets with this 8% mark. Also, I think it's important to have independent review of security. That is very important. Not just rely on the consultants who are building your website or providing you the software. It's important to have an independent security consultant review that. So there's a maker and a checker. And finally, as you said, security is not a one-stop solution. It's a process. It's a journey. And that has to continue. New threats are emerging on a day-to-day basis. I think we have to keep our eyes and ears open, keep training ourselves to thwart off such attacks, and defend our companies with help from consultants like yourselves, who can give us some kind of a guarantee, at least, that even if we are breached, you will help us in getting back to business within no time. Thank you, Saket. I think it was really nice talking to you. Back to Akhilesh.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I can assume that the overall security environment is very threatening. The overall landscape is very threatening. We have companies everybody is into some kind of e-commerce business, so there's an opportunity for hackers to go and hack any XYZ company. Second, there are CFOs in the company which do not understand the ROI of a security system. Again, there are organizations which, despite being breached, they're not able to accept it and share the best practices on themselves so that others can have a learning. And coming again, there's vendors also, interestingly, which, as per Saket, are keeping the somewhere they are creating some loopholes so that they can create more money out of it. So the entire landscape is very, very threatening. So I should think that all the CSOs should have some kind of third-party assessment, at least to begin with the best practices. And again, I think they have to make the entire as Parag and Saket both rightly put it, that security is process, it's not just a point. So I think the entire management has to understand somewhere at the point of that's a process that has to be continuously and regularly followed and evaluated every time. So thank you everyone. It was wonderful speaking. Both of you, it was nice discussion overall. And I think we continue to have such kind of sessions in future also. And we have a great learning together. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Parag. Thank you, Akhilesh. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.